quick tutorial on how to set up your gradebook so to eliminate the percentages and the placeholders. So this is my gradebook in one of my classes. I'm just going to show you the back-end setup before we get into the actual assignment building. In the Edit Setup button at the top, you will see that I've eliminated some of the bins that were currently or were in there from the other day. What I have done is I've kept the MYP criterion A through D, just the regular crit A, crit B, not the one that's the underscore with the cumulative. I also have an assessment for learning category for assessments and formative things that I'm going to have throughout the year. I do have that as a level 8 right now, but I may actually drop that. I've added a June exam with no letter grade scale because I plan on just doing a raw score for that exam. I still want it counted at 30% of my grade. As well, I have the summative assessment, which is kind of my term score. That is a mark out of 32, and that's weighted at 70%. I still have the 70,000, 30,000 weighting in here. I don't think it's completely necessary with this model, but I'm keeping it in just in case. If you do split your June exam and your summative assessment into like 15-15 or 20-10, you can actually add a summative project in here and just make that 15,000 and 15,000. So it's not necessary that you have the 30,000 exam, or if you don't have exam, likewise. Okay, so once you have saved that, you're going to get back out into the regular gradebook and you can start adding assignments. Now, the assignments that I've added, I'm going to start with something in the SA category, and I've called it a score out of 32 because that's really what it is. That is going to be the score that's converted into the percentage at the end of the year. So I've just titled it score out of 32. I've set it to summative assessment, which is already weighted at the 70%. I've actually used an abbreviation score to 32, but here's where it gets important that how you don't let the percentages appear. The max points must be at 0, and you must have extra credit checked off. I've also included all of these things to be checked off. The other important thing that you want to make sure is that it's got to be assigned relatively soon, like now or maybe the start of school. That's when the assign date, but the due date has to be at the end of the year. I've picked June 5th as a safe date. I can always change that later, but it should be the last thing in your gradebook entry. So it shows up at the very end of the list. So again, to be clear, you need a max points out of 0, and it also needs to count as extra credit. So that'll appear here. Don't worry about the entries just yet. The next thing that I would have entered is the kind of most recent, most consistent bin for my first criterion. And mine is knowledge and understanding, and I called it the knowledge understanding reported level. This is the level that I've reported on that is your most recent, most consistent. I've selected my MYP criterion bin at MYP criterion A. I've given it a generally descriptive no understanding, and again, I've labeled this at a 0 with extra credit. Looking at the dates, I've also assigned it at the beginning of the year and due at the end of the year. So that's going to show up as my knowledge and understanding. And I'm going to do that again for each of the bins. I've got my communicating, my investigating, and my thinking critically. And because the dates are at the end of the year, they actually fall at the end of a long list or short list of assessments. Then I started adding in my actual individual tasks. So here I've got my unit test 1. Again, I put in a description what it is. I said that's an MYP criterion A as well. And what I've done is I've not added that to the cumulative grade. I've still got it 0 max points and extra credit. And the date, again, is the actual due date. So when it's actually due and when it's actually assigned. So that's really the only thing that you need to remember when you're adding subsequent assignments is that it doesn't add to the cumulative grade. There is an extra credit and it's at a 0, and you can still use the accurate dates. So what happens, what it will look like is when I click on that student, there will be nothing in the percentages. None of the items will be recorded in the graph, but what will be displayed is your score of 32 at the, oh, whoops, I forgot to tell you how to do that. This is still a drop down. So when you add up at the reporting period or at any time you can, that you have all evidence from all 4 criteria, you can select that number. It happens to be 29, but before when you did that, a percentage would show up. So when we go back into this view, there's still a score out of 32. It communicates that. It does communicate all of the assignments that I have in each criterion, and what shows up is the knowledge understanding reported level, which is what their most recent, most consistent is. And so that I find that's better that it falls at the bottom of each one of those categories, which is nice. I think that's a little bit more descriptive than perhaps having them up come to the top. When you, my idea is what's going to happen when we get to reporting period. You're going to go back into the score at a 32 at a report card time. You're going to uncheck that extra credit box, make it at a 32, and lo and behold, their percentage will show up. That's already been built into TigerNet, what the accurate percentage from converting from a level is. So that's really useful. Hopefully, if you have any more questions, shoot me an email or a text, and I'll try to get back to you.